All right, if you're a veteran, you've almost definitely bumped into this thing called VA math. It's the system the VA uses for disability ratings. And let's be honest, it's famous for being, well, kinda confusing. But here's the thing, there is a logic behind it. In this explainer, we're gonna pull back the curtain and break down the rules so it all starts to make sense. Let's get right into it.
So here it is, the classic puzzle that gets everybody. You've got a 50% disability, and you add another 50% disability. In any normal math class, that's 100%. Case closed, right? Well, not with VA math. So what is the real answer? And more importantly, how in the world does the VA get there?
Okay, so the secret to cracking this whole thing comes down to one word: efficiency. The VA doesn't just stack your disabilities on top of each other. Instead, it looks at how much of you is still whole and applies each new disability to what's left.
So here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to tackle the mystery of VA math by first digging into that efficiency concept. Then we'll walk through how you actually combine your ratings step by step. We'll also cover a special rule called the bilateral factor bonus, run a full calculation from start to finish, and wrap up by looking at why the system is set up this way.
Okay, let's dive into the most important piece of this puzzle first. This is the foundation of all VA math, the idea that they're rating what's left of you, not just adding up what you've lost. You know, if you dig into the official regulation, Section 4.25, you'll find this key phrase, the efficiency of the individual. That's the whole ballgame right there. Instead of thinking about disability, the VA flips it and thinks about ability. Each new disability rating is applied to the person who is already disabled, not the 100% healthy person they were before.
Here's the easiest way to think about it. Picture yourself starting out as 100% whole or efficient. Now, let's say you have a single disability rated at 50%. In the VA's eyes, you are now 50% efficient. That 50% becomes the new starting line for any other disabilities you might have.
And here's an example straight from the rulebook itself. So imagine a vet is 60% disabled. This means they are 40% efficient, right? 100 minus 60 is 40. Now they get a second disability rated at 30%. That 30% isn't taken from the original 100. It's 30% of their remaining 40% efficiency. That leaves them with just 28% efficiency in total.
All right, let's do one together. You start at 100%. Easy enough? A 50% disability comes along, which leaves you 50% efficient. Now we add another 30% disability. But remember, it's 30% of the remaining 50%. So 30% of 50 is 15. We subtract that 15 from our 50, and that leaves us with 35% efficiency. To get the final rating, you just subtract that from 100, and you get a 65% combined disability. See? It's not 80. Okay, so we've got the why down. Now let's get into the how. The VA has a very specific, and I mean very specific, set of steps you have to follow when combining multiple ratings.
Now, these rules are super important. You have to follow them exactly. First, you always list your disabilities from the biggest number to the smallest. Then you combine just the top two. Now, this next part is crucial. You take that exact number, no rounding, and combine it with the next one on your list. You just keep doing that over and over until you're done. You only round one time, at the very end, to the nearest 10. And if it ends in a 5, you always round up.
Check out this example. It's straight from the regulation. Let's say a vet has 3 ratings, 60%, 40%, and 20%. First, we combine the two highest, 60 and 40. Now, you'd use the VA's combined ratings table for this. It's just a big chart that has all the math done for you. So 60 and 40 gives you 76. Notice we're not rounding. We take that exact 76 and combine it with the next rating, 20%. The table tells us that comes out to 81. Now, we're at the end, so we round. 81 is closer to 80 than 90, so the final combined rating is 80%.
Okay, now for something a little different. A special rule that can really change the final number. It's called the bilateral factor, and it's all about injuries to your paired limbs.
So what is it? Think of it like a 10% bonus. The VA gives you this extra bump when you have service-connected issues on both sides of your body, like both arms or both legs. The idea is simple. Having a bad right knee is one thing, but having a bad right knee and a bad left knee is more than twice as difficult.
And how you calculate this is totally different from the other math. First, you only look at the disabilities on those paired limbs and combine them normally. Then you figure out what 10% of that new number is. And here's the part everyone messes up. You add that 10% straight on top. You do not run it through the VA math table again.
This new, slightly bigger number becomes its own single rating, which you then put back in line with your other disabilities.
Okay, we've got all the pieces now: efficiency, the rules for combining, and that special bilateral factor. Let's put it all together and see it in action with a complete start-to-finish calculation.
So let's imagine a veteran with these 4 disabilities: a 60%, a 20%, a 10% for their right arm, and a 10% for their left arm. As soon as you see injuries on both arms, a little alarm should go off in your head. Bilateral factor. We have to deal with that first.
Step 1. You always handle the bilateral stuff first. So we take the 10% for the right arm and the 10% for the left arm. We combine those two using the VA table, and that gives us a value of 19%.
Okay, now for that bonus. We take 10% of 19. That's 1.9. You add that to the 19, which gets you 20.9. Now, the official example just rounds this up to a clean 21%. So that 21% is now our new number. It completely replaces the two 10% ratings for the rest of the calculation.
All right, step 2, we have to reorder our list now that we have this new number. Our old list was 60, 20, 10, and 10. Our new list is 60, our new bilateral value of 21, and the original 20. See how the two 10s are just gone? They've been replaced.
And from here on out, it's just standard procedure. We combine the top two, 60% and 21%, which gets us 68%. We take that exact 68, no rounding, and combine it with our last rating, 20%. The table tells us that equals 74%. And now that we're at the very end, we finally get to round. 74 rounds down to the nearest 10, and boom, there's our answer. The final combined rating is 70%. So this is a perfect example of how 4 different ratings get crunched through these specific rules to land on one final number, leaving this veteran with 30% remaining efficiency.
So after going through all that, you might be wondering, why? Why on earth is it so complicated? Why not just add the numbers together? Well, there's actually a reason for it all.
This quote from the regulations really says it all. The key phrase here is impairment in earning capacity. See, VA ratings aren't about measuring pain or how much something hurts. They are designed to measure, on average, how much a disability impacts your ability to hold a job and earn a living. That's why the efficiency model is used, because a new injury has a different economic impact on someone who's already dealing with other issues.
So, look, VA math can feel like a total headache, but it's not random. There's a method to the madness, built on these consistent, predictable rules. Once you grasp that core concept of remaining efficiency, the fog really starts to clear. So the real question is, now that you've seen how the sausage is made, does it change how you think about the whole system?